A leader should be authoritative.
He is the icon of the century.
If you give even one vote to the Congress Party or the Communists, they cannot form a government. Your vote will go to waste.
If the elections are free and fair, and if the voting machines aren't tampered with, then the BJP won't win more than 180 seats. In fact, even less.
We Hindus should get the priority and not any other community or any other religion.
We are not Indian citizens or what?
I don't think so. This government is doing something towards employment.
Nowadays, education is very costly.
This election is important for the future of this country, for the coming generations.
And that was a very quick glimpse of general elections that are currently underway in India. It's what we're talking about today on News Desk, which, as you know, is a DW News conversation where we take your questions and comments and respond to them. I'm Biresh Banerjee.
And I'm Michelle Stockman, and I will be paying special attention to your comments and your questions so that we can bring you into the discussion, and we'll have experts joining us later who we hope to. So please, if you haven't already subscribed, do so you can take part in the chat and we can bring you in to our talk.
And you should be able to see this chat on your screens at this moment. So, India's elections kicked off last week, Friday last week. Was the first date of voting, and there's going to be another 5 weeks that are ahead of us with another 6 specific days of voting. We have current Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who most of you will be aware of. He is there on the ballot. He wants to get a third term. He is deeply popular amongst the electorate. Certain opinion polls are pegging his popularity at more than 70%, almost nearing 80%, extremely popular. But he wants to return for a third term. There are questions being asked if he will be able to return with an even greater majority, which is what he has promised the electorate. Will that happen is something that we're going to have a look at. But today, we are looking at that electoral appeal. We're going to be trying to decode Narendra Modi's electoral appeal and really asking the question of if he really is that unbeatable.
And many people have already weighed in on that question. Is Modi really unbeatable? Is he, I'm sorry, is Modi, can he be defeated? Can he at all? Right. That's the question we're talking about today. And many people have already in the community post weighed in on that. We put that up about 24 hours ago. We heard from @Breeks, Narendra Modi is unstoppable, invincible, powerful, and India needs him. Other people, a little bit more measured. At Addy 2.054, Modi is not unbeatable, but the opposition is unelectable. And then we have comments like @Twang Kings. This is exactly how dictators come to power under cover of democracy. So we have the range of comments there. Be interesting to see.
Not our words, yours, just to be clear.
That's right, all right. So let's go around the table and talk to everybody who will be taking part in this discussion. We have Jared Reed, who you've seen before on News Desk. He's a journalist and anchor here at DW, and he's going to catch us up with what's going on right now in the election, the first phase. Can't wait to hear from you in a little bit. And then across from me, we have Pablo Foley Elias, and he also is a member here of the DW Newsroom. You've seen him on screen as an anchor and journalist, and he will be really in the community chat, looking at what people are saying and making sure that we're bringing you into the discussion.
That's right, Michelle. And we're seeing plenty of comments coming in at the moment anyway, so there'll be plenty of discussion, no doubt.
And this is also the first time that Pablo is appearing on News Desk, so we're really happy to have him on the discussion finally.
Thanks for coming.
That's right. So we'll be joined by other folks as well.
Yeah,
right?
but then we also have one person that we've forgotten to mention, neglected to mention at our peril, because he's the man.
Let me do that.
Okay.
Yes. He is about a few meters away from us. That is Wade Adams. He was in charge of the montage that you saw at the beginning, and also, keeps the lights on, make sure that everything stays connected so that we're connected to you and you're connected to us and can take part in this discussion.
And later we'll be joined by two experts. We'll have Ashutosh, whom many of you all, at least in India, would have certainly heard of. He is a journalist. Before that, he was also involved in politics. He is a political analyst. He'll be joining us shortly from India. And we'll also have Kanti Bajpai a little after that. He is an international relations expert and also a political scientist who will be commenting on these elections. He'll be joining us from Singapore in some time.
All right. So we actually want to hear what people have been saying in the chat. They've actually had a chance to vote already, right? In a poll that we put out.
We actually put out a poll yesterday, so it's been up for a little over 24 hours now, and we posed the question, how will India's election play out for the BJP? And the results that came in from this first poll, because basically what happened was it was up for, we didn't realise it was only going to be up for 24 hours. So we've reposted the same poll, so it's still up there. It's going to be up for a little while longer so people can vote. So make sure you get your vote in.
We're figuring out YouTube as we go along. We didn't know that the poll expires in 24 hours, which is why it's been reposted. But these are the results potentially from the first
poll, which is the same question that we still have up.
We made a plan B, which is going to make it even more interesting.
Correct, Michelle. So what we've seen from our question, I'll just remind our viewers, how will India's election play out for the BJP? 62% that they see an increased majority, 13 reduced majority. Same as last time, 12%, and loses the majority, 10%. So these are obviously results which I'm sure will be discussed throughout the show and with you guys and, of course, with our guests.
And we're going to put that poll back up so people can vote some more.
That's right, it's up there.
That's right. And perhaps you'll change your mind or have a different opinion after hearing from the experts that we're going to be bringing in later on today.
And we'll have those results of that poll further on towards the as the conversation starts to wrap up. So there is time. Please go ahead and vote. But first, let's dive right in. Let's bring you up to speed with exactly what is happening in India right now and what is expected. What are we going to be seeing over the next few weeks playing out in that country? And to help us do that, Jared Reid to the rescue.
Yeah, this is a really exciting election to be talking about because there are, as we know, over 50 countries that are holding elections this year. But out of all of those countries, this one is the biggest, which I think makes it one of the most exciting to talk about. So I'm going to bring in some stats to quickly show you. Wade will bring those up. As I say, it's the world's largest democratic election, almost 970 million eligible voters. Now, this is more than the populations of the EU, the US, and Russia combined. With so many people, it takes about 6 weeks to get through. It's held over 7 stages. The next one's on Friday. There are 15 million election workers. This is enough to fit into 214 Bayern Munich football stadiums. Just a little bit of trivia for you. There are 5.5 million electronic voting machines, more than ever before. And these huge logistics come at a huge cost. An estimation is $14.4 billion US. This is a conservative estimation, I have to point out. Now, this is quite a lot to wrap your head around. Something else that I found really cool, India's laws state that everyone must have a polling station within 2 kilometres of where they are. So they don't have to travel more than 2 kilometres to get to a polling station. So there are a lot of polling stations, more than 1 million. Now, I mentioned that voting is staggered over 7 stages. This is to help accommodate for these really complicated logistics, but it's also to help authorities keep the elections secure and safe and free of violence as much as they can. And I say as much as they can because there has been some violence already in the first stage that took place last Friday in the northeastern state of Manipur. Wade is going to bring up some of those images there now. Now, there have been quite a lot of tensions between these 2 states' dominant ethnic groups. We can see here a clip of some of that violence aftermath. There was a polling booth that was ransacked. There was reports of gunshots too being fired at one particular occasion. So there is some scattered incidents of violence despite all this heavy security. Now, in this particular case, the authorities declared the voting void at around 11 polling booths, so the voting is going to have to be rerun in these particular polling booths, but there is quite a lot of time to do it, so that means that, you know, when these things happen, authorities can accommodate, you know, having to redo voting.
Right. Thank you so much. Well, we know that this is just the first stage of voting, right? And there are more to come.
That's right.
But the goal that Modi has is a majority. In fact, a supermajority. We have people commenting on the chat on that. We have Anju Yadav, who's saying this time 400 plus. And Ratnesh Paliya, you know, sounds to him like Modi's inevitable. He says the opposition is incapable.
Yeah, I mean, those numbers are going to be interesting because we'll dive into them in some time as to why 400 is important and what is this idea of a majority. We'll bring up some charts a little later. But before we just go on, it's just worth pointing out for those who aren't aware that India follows the first past the post system. It's a legacy from British rule, and that essentially means that if there are, for example, 3 candidates standing in a constituency, the one with the most votes wins. But that also means that the other 2 who might have accrued certain votes, and even if one of them had lost by, say, 1 vote, a difference of 1 vote, they get nothing, basically. So it's a winner-takes-all system in which the person with the most votes gets the entire seat or the constituency, and the others get nothing. There is no proportional representation there. So India follows that.
So you could have minority rule.
Exactly.
Wow.
And India has had minority rule in the past because of this very arrangement and coalitions that follow. Right, let's bring in our guest who's been waiting patiently in the wings. I had promised you Ashutosh, who joins us now from India. Welcome, Ashutosh. Just a quick introduction about Ashutosh. Ashutosh is one of India's most well-known journalists. He is also a very well-renowned political analyst, is one of the co-founders of a news portal, Hindi.com. And interestingly, Ashutosh was also involved with national politics for some time. He was a member of the Aam Aadmi Party, that is the party that rules the state of Punjab, and is also formed the government in Delhi. Interestingly, if you're following the news, the chief minister of the state of Delhi from the Aam Aadmi Party is currently in prison on corruption charges, and there has been a lot of criticism on that. But that's just to give you a bit of context. Ashutosh is no longer with the Aam Aadmi Party, but a political analyst. Very happy to have you, Ashutosh. We were talking about a controversy there, and this is to do with Arvind Kejriwal, the Chief Minister of Delhi. We'll not talk about that, but since the elections have already gotten underway, there is already a controversy brewing over what something the Prime Minister Modi, said at an election rally. I'd just like Wade, our producer, to play that soundbite. I'll play that soundbite, and then we'll come to you for reactions. So here is what the Prime Minister said.
When Congress was in power, they said Muslims have the first right to the nation's wealth. This means they'll collect people's wealth and distribute it to whom? To those who have more children. To the infiltrators. Do you think your hard-earned money should be given to infiltrators? Would you accept this? This is what the Congress manifesto is saying.
Right, so Narendra Modi calling Muslims infiltrators there. I'll come to you in a second, Ashutosh, but let's just hear what the Congress party had to say on this, because the Congress was mentioned in Narendra Modi's speech. Here is what a member of the Congress party had to say about that.
I'm sorry, this is a very disgraceful speech made by the Prime Minister. But, you know, the fact is that people realize that when he says the Congress party is going to take all your wealth and give it to the Muslims, that this is just a nakedly communal appeal which normally any civilized election commission would disallow and warn the candidate for speaking like this.
I will come to you for a reaction, Ashutosh, but I'd just like to know what my colleagues around the table think about this.
I mean, I heard some explicit things there, but also some coded language, I feel like. So I really want some explanation as to why he said that and what he really means when talking about Modi.
Which is why we have Ashutosh there.
Yeah.
Ashutosh, I've been teasing you since then. Please, how do you interpret what Narendra Modi said there?
Viresh, thank you so much for me being as a host, as a guest here. See, the statement signifies that the Prime Minister Narendra Modi is not very confident about after the first phase of polling. And why I'm saying so, because there is a drop of almost 4 to 5% polling if you compare with 2019. And if the Modi mania or the Modi factor is working, then this polling percentage should have gone up. But since there is a drop, and there are certain pockets in Rajasthan, which is one of the biggest states in India, and in UP, a part of the UP also, there are certain political developments which is happening, which is not a good news for the BJP. And it looks like that the BJP is slightly worried. This Prime Minister's worry reflects in his statement. Because I had watched very keenly the 2014 parliamentary elections. I've also watched the 2019 parliamentary election, but I have never seen Prime Minister Narendra Modi talking on the communal lines to begin with. But he has started talking on the communal lines. He started using the Hindu-Muslim bogey, and just to polarize Hindu voters. That can be two reasons. One, either he has realized that there is a Modi fatigue, one, or he has also realized that basically the Modi supporters are not going to the polling booths and voting for him. And in either case, this is a bad news for the Prime Minister Modi. And whenever the BJP is in crisis, whenever Mr. Modi is in crisis, he always goes back to the Hindu-Muslim bogey. He always goes to his communal agenda. And that's how I realize. Right. And this is basically to create an enemy syndrome of the Muslims, right, to create a victimhood among the Hindus, and to project that if you Hindus will not go and vote for the BJP, then there will be the Muslims, and then they will rule over you.
Right. There's a number of strands there in your answer. It's a very layered answer. I'd like to unpack them one by one. You're talking about not the results, but then the first phase of polling and not really favoring the BJP. Let's unpack that. We'll also try and unpack the Hindu-Muslim bogey that you talked about. We'll do that a little bit later. But just for the people who are tuning into the chat, if you'd like to post some questions specifically to do with the first phase of polling, and Ashutosh will be able to answer those questions because that is what we look at right now. Jared, we were discussing this before we began the conversation. There is a map that we have on the first phase of polling. Just maybe we bring that up. Exactly. And Ashutosh can talk us through that particular map. Ashutosh, just checking with you, can you see this map that is there on the screen right now?
Yeah, I can see. See.
So these are the for people who are tuning in. This is the map of India, and what is there in yellow is basically the places, the constituencies that went to the polls on Friday last week. Now, Ashutosh, in most of these states, with the exception of Tamil Nadu, the state that's right at the bottom there, which Jared is circling, most of these states you have the BJP essentially in power. Yet you are saying that the BJP is unhappy with the polling there. Can you explain that to us, please?
See, I think the problem with the BJP is that the BJP has almost peaked in the northern states, northern states of India. And like in Rajasthan, last time they got all 25 seats. In Gujarat, they got all 26 seats. In Madhya Pradesh, they got all except one of 28 seats.
Let's just, sorry, Ashutosh, 1 second. Let's just put the map up so that people can follow along. Yeah, please. Sorry, carry on.
But when you go down south, like in Tamil Nadu, in Kerala, BJP is finding it difficult to open its account. In Andhra Pradesh, they're finding it difficult to open its account. In Telangana, their number is not very good. So in North India, they have already peaked. And the problem with the BJP, that unlike the Congress of the early 50s and the early 60s, when the Congress was all India, geographically an all India party, they had their footprints almost everywhere, and they used to get seats and the vote percentage from everywhere. That's one reason that the Congress party in early 50s and 60s, the late 70s, whenever they got a majority, they got more than 40% vote share. But the BJP in 2014, they got only for 31% vote share, which is pretty low. They improved by 6% in 2019 election. It goes to 37. But it is nowhere when you compare with the Congress of old Congress. That I'm talking about Nehru's Congress, Indira Gandhi's Congress. So BJP, if loses seat in Rajasthan, BJP if loses seat in the Western UP, BJP if loses another 10-20 seats in North India, that means that the BJP will find it difficult to maintain the magic numbers of 272. And the first time in 2014, they got only 282 seats, which are just 10 ahead of the majority numbers. In 2019, they got 303 seats. So any drop of almost 20 and 25, 30 seats in North India, and which is doable. It's not that is impossible and the BJP will not lose. Because this is the 10 years in the government, the BJP is the 10 years in the government, there is a strong incumbency against the party. And in every survey, the price rise is a huge issue, the corruption is a huge issue, and then the unemployment is a huge issue. So these issues are, the people are asking questions. So issue is not that the BJP will lose all 25 seats in Rajasthan, but if BJP loses even 6 seats out of 10 seats, and also it loses in Gujarat, in Madhya Pradesh, in Chhattisgarh and other places, that means BJP can lose 30-40 seats. And if they lose 30-40 seats, and in comparison to 2019, then the BJP can lose the majority numbers too. That's the BJP's worry.
I promise you we're going to discuss price rise and unemployment. That is also one of the sections that we hope to discuss. But just staying on the first phase of polling, you said that there was a drop in the voter turnout. As far as I've been able to find out, the voter turnout was somewhere between 62 and 64% in phase 1 in 2019. Phase 1 was somewhere around 70%. So there has been an overall drop. But then does that necessarily translate into trouble for the BJP?
It's not about the poll percentage. The poll percentage only signifies there is an indifference. Modi is a charismatic leader. Modi is a very popular leader. There is no doubt about it. No leader in India and opposition can match up to his popularity. But if his popularity, when he claimed that the BJP will get 370 seats, and the people are not enthused about it, people are not coming out to vote for the BJP or coming out to vote to whichever political party they want. If that is not happening, that means the Modi magic is on decline. And if the Modi magic is on decline, and in certain areas, certain geographical areas of India, like in the first phase, as I mentioned, and the 12 seats of the Rajasthan, there are few seats where the BJP is seriously in trouble. Because if your audience understands the caste configuration of India, that means the Jats are very unhappy with the BJP, that the Rajputs are very unhappy with the BJP, and there is other section of the society also, they're also unhappy with the BJP. I'm only saying if these section of society, if these caste, if they decide to vote against the BJP, then the BJP might lose a few seats. I'm not saying the BJP will lose all 25 seats, but out of 25, if they lose 5 or 6 seats, and if they lose same number of seats in other states, in a normal circumstance, that would have been a brilliant performance by the BJP. But when the BJP is already saturated, have won all the seats, and then losing 4 or 5 seats in almost 6-7 states, that will create problem for them, because then it will find it difficult to reach the magic numbers.
I just, since we're talking about numbers, let's just show the numbers that we do have. Wade, if you're listening in, we've prepared these graphics of the performance in the 2014 elections, and we also have a graphic of the performance in the 2019 elections. So there you go. In 2014, the BJP basically secured 282 seats in the Indian Parliament on their own. This is out of a total of 543 seats. Remember, the halfway mark is 272 seats. And if you go beyond 272 seats, you are essentially in majority. And that's what the BJP was able to do in 2014. Let's have a look at 2019. In 2019, the BJP on its own was able to get a far higher number, 303 seats on its own, basically a supermajority, as it was dubbed in India. If I'm not wrong, Ashutosh, that was the headline that was there across papers. And for this election, Narendra Modi is promising the BJP by itself reaching 370 seats, and along with its coalition partner, the NDA, as you see on this graphic right now, the BJP wants a sum total of about 400 seats out of 543 seats. That's what the Prime Minister basically wants to see. Ashutosh, you're saying that even if they lose certain seats, this could be in trouble. But then, based on the polling that I have seen, it appears that even if they lose some seats, they will still be in majority, which is to say they will still be able to cross 272 by themselves and be able to form the government. Is that correct?
I will not predict that how many numbers the BJP will get. I will also not predict that whether BJP is going to win or form the government. But I can say that the BJP has a definite edge in this election if you compare with other political parties. Opposition is very weak, and opposition has not been able to galvanize themselves and unite themselves as a one unit force. So that's a problem. But the problem with the BJP is that if they lose a few seats, 2 dozen seats in North India, then they can't compensate by winning seats in Tamil Nadu or in Kerala. These are the 2 states, in Andhra Pradesh or in Telangana. And the problem is coming from the 4 states. One from Bihar.
One second, Ashu. Sorry, I want to put up a map because we know what these states are. I just want to put up a map so people can follow along as you speak. And I think, Jared, we have a map prepared of the states where the BJP is currently generally in power. Yeah, this is the map that we have. It's from 2023. It shows generally the states where the BJP is in power, with the exception of Bihar, which is on the top right blue corner, because that just changed in 2024. It also generally gives a good spread of the Hindi heartland states where the BJP is strong. Ashu, sorry for interrupting you. Please carry on.
No. Yeah. So for your viewers who understand India, the 4 states can be a swing state in this election. 1 is Bihar, second is Maharashtra, third is Karnataka, and fourth is West Bengal. Because in Bihar, last time the BJP, along with his allies, got 39 seats out of 40, which is a huge number. And then the Bihar Chief Minister, Nitish Kumar, who happens to be BJP's allies, he moved to the RJD, Lalu Prasad Yadav, and then again had gone back to the BJP. Today, Nitish Kumar's credibility is lowest. And there is a possibility that the BJP, that the JDU might lose, majorly might lose seats in Bihar. BJP is also not in a very good state. So if out of 39, if the BJP loses another 10, 12 seats along with its allies, that means they are losing seats. But from where they will gain, nobody knows. In Maharashtra again, BJP last time got 42 seats, 43 seats along with its allies out of 48. Can they repeat the same performance? Everybody doubts it, because BJP knew that they are in trouble in Maharashtra. That is why they split Shiv Sena, they split NCP. But the split Shiv Sena and the split NCP, they have almost no credibility, and they are more on the loser side in that sense. So BJP had got this split part of the Shiv Sena and the NCP, but they're still not in a position to repeat the 2019 performance. So there is a possibility that the BJP can lose a few seats in Maharashtra also. Karnataka, it's a South India state, but last time they got 25 plus 1 out of 28 seats. Today, the Congress party has got majority and has a huge numbers in assembly elections. Can the BJP repeat the same performance? No, they can't. So the issue is, if they are losing seats in North India, a few seats, from where they are gaining. There is no possibility of gaining in Bihar. There is no possibility of gaining in Maharashtra. There is no possibility of gaining in Karnataka. They might gain a few seats in West Bengal. Last time they got, out of 42 seats, they got 18. But they can't jump to 36. At the most, they can gain 1 or 2 seats. So the issue is, if the BJP is losing a few seats in North India, there's no possibility of gaining in South India. That makes the whole situation very tricky for the BJP. And mind it, Narendra Modi is one leader who is in a habit of doing a centralized politics. If he doesn't have a numbers on his own, then he will find it very difficult to run the government, because that is not his DNA.
Ashutosh, there is a pretty strong reaction to your analysis in the chat. We've got Mohak Jain saying, please bring a reporter and not someone from the opposition party, so someone who's not really a fan of what you're saying. And then we also are hearing from Majdi Awad. Good job, DW. This man is speaking facts and isn't a Hindu nationalist making theocratic arguments about why the BJP or Modi will win. So you've really touched a nerve in terms of what you're thinking is happening in this election.
And since you have touched a nerve, Ashutosh, let's just expand on, the initial strands of the answer that you'd given at the start of this discussion. You were talking about the Hindu-Muslim bogey that Prime Minister Narendra Modi was invoking in that speech that he had made over the weekend. And that's what I would like to discuss with you, because here, I mean, at least amongst our colleagues and also generally in the Western media, and you have seen this quite a lot, Ashutosh, as well, we talk about the Hindu-nationalist BJP. And I just wanted to know from you, is it a fair description of the BJP? And if so, is it also... I mean, we're talking about India, which has an 80% majority Hindu population. It's not like all Hindus vote for the BJP, is it?
No, if all Hindus have been voting for the BJP would have got more than 50% vote share in general election. BJP is still struggling with a 37% vote share. That means all Hindus are not voting for the BJP. Even the 50% Hindus are also not voting for the BJP. See, we have to understand that the BJP is one political party which is an ideology-driven political party. And they have been preparing for these days since 1925. And this is basically political wing of the RSS. And political wing of the RSS and the RSS in its ideology very clearly mentions. And MS Golwalkar, if your audience knows him, was the second chief of the RSS. And he writes in his book that the Hindus, that the Muslims have to live in India as the will and the wishes of the Hindus, and they will not have the civil rights and the political rights. So these are the very strong words. But this is what their ideology is. So if on the basis of this ideology, if they are called as a political party whose ideology hates Muslims and or hates Christians or hate minorities, there is a documentary evidence. So one might not agree with me, but the fact of the matter is that the BJP has no qualms in talking about only Hindus. They always create a bogey of the Hindus and dangers, and the Muslims are growing every day. And the time will come, if the Hindus are not awakened, then the Muslims will rule over Hindus, and then they go back in history. That look at the last 1,000 years of India's history, where the Muslims came as the invaders and they ruled over us and traumatized us, troubled us, and made us poor. So one can always say that we are in 2024. BJP is a modernist party. We are living in a technological age, and BJP will not behave the way their ideologues have been talking about. But the fact of the matter is, last 10 years of the Modi's profile, or the government's profile, is a witness that there are a strong anti-minority attitude of the government.
I have to say, this commenter agrees with you. Jim Khan 7645 says, Modi is a master tactician. He fired that ambiguous salvo early on. I think he's referring to that quote that we heard from Modi early on, talking about how, he purposely knows what he's doing. And in terms of what you said, having no qualms promoting this ideology.
Basically what you've been saying, Ashutosh, is about using religion for politics, and I think we call that Hindutva as a political ideology. But then, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't it the opposition as well, like especially the Congress, for example, that has also been accused of so-called soft Hindutva, which is to say not to go as hardcore as potentially the BJP goes, but to be on that same path and to try and, let's say, cater to political Hindu views. Is that also not a fair statement to make?
Partly you agree. Partly I agree with you. Modi has changed the rules of the game in Indian politics. And earlier, before he became the Chief Minister of Gujarat, or before he became the Prime Minister of India, there was a tendency to cater to the minorities, cater to the Muslims. and which the BJP has been calling as a Muslim appeasement. They created the bogey of Muslim appeasement, and Mr. Narendra Modi has and his party proved it that they can win election, they can form the government, they can become the prime ministers without taking a single vote from the Muslims. So they are basically trying to cater to 80% of the population. They are not worried, they are not bothered about the 20%, other 14% the Muslims and then the Christians. And you talk to any BJP leaders, whether in the government or outside the government, they will openly say this. It is not a coincidence that not a single out of 303 member of parliament, there's not one Muslim member of parliament which represents BJP. You go to the UP, which is the largest state in India. There's not one single MLA from the Muslim MLA from the BJP. This is not a coincidence. They purposely have done it because that's a very long story if you go into the ideology why this is happening. But the fact of the matter is they don't want Muslim votes. They don't want Muslims on their side. They are here to unite Hindus. And the bogey is that if you will not vote today, the Muslims will rule over us like they did in the last 1,000 years.
Right. Ashutosh, stay with us on the line because we have another expert who is joining us all the way from Singapore. Kanti Bajpai has been listening in to the conversation, and it's very late in Singapore. So many thanks, Kanti, for being available at this time. Kanti Bajpai is a political scientist and Vice Dean of Research and Development at the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy. Kanti, welcome. Thanks so much for making the time. Just based on what Ashutosh was saying over there, is there, I mean, given that there are poll predictions that maybe Narendra Modi does return for a third term, do you think the fear is justified that if he were to come back, based on what Ashutosh was saying, India is headed to becoming what's called in India a Hindu Rashtra, a Hindu state officially?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on, and very nice to see Ashutosh. I didn't hear everything Ashutosh said, but my own sense is that Modi will certainly come back with a fairly substantial majority. And it's hard to know exactly what those numbers will be. I inclined towards a higher number maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. I inclined towards a lower number, but somewhere in and around what he already has is. But I think Ashutosh has probably done a state-by-state and perhaps more rigorous analysis than these remarks of mine suggest. But that's my guesswork. I think, we have to be careful about what we mean by a Hindu state or Hindu Rashtra and so on. Effectively, there's already a very strong kind of Hindutva element to Indian politics. And it may not need any formal kind of declaration. Although some in the BJP have loosely talked about constitutional change that might point in that direction, but Modi himself has never made that point. But I think what one can say as an opener for me is that this second term, in contrast to the first 5 years of Modi, has certainly seen a much more political cultural agenda. And let me just tick off some of the things that the BJP has done under Modi that would substantiate what I say. Article 370, the repeal of that, it's certainly been read as, a promise on a plate of kind of a sort of different version of nationalism, at least, if not Hindu nationalism, but a much harder line nationalism and centralization. The Muslim women's divorce bill has again been read in different ways. No party in the past wanted to go there, but Modi has gone there. And again, he's been accused of being a kind of Hindu right-wing nationalist as a result. There's talk of a uniform civil code in his next avatar if he comes into power. But the preparations for that have already begun. And some Indian states under the BJP, particularly Uttarakhand, have already begun talking about it. The Ram temple in Ayodhya was finally built and open with Modi taking center stage in its inaugural, which is a bit odd, frankly. One might have expected priests to do it. The Citizenship Act.
We in fact have pictures of that. We in fact have, sorry Kanti to interrupt you, we in fact have pictures of the Ram Temple inauguration ceremony. We just want to play that while you talk. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, if one looks at these, one could say that the first term accented, as he said, a more developmentalist agenda, a more economic agenda. We can talk about whether he succeeded or failed there. But in the second term, which is ending now, there seems to have been a much more political engineering, political cultural agenda, and economics has taken a relative backseat. So where do we go in the next round? He himself publicly has said he's going to accelerate reforms. Does that suggest that he's going to go back to the more economic type developmental agenda, or is it going to be the more political cultural? One way, and I'll just stop with this thought, one way of squaring those two propositions is, I think what people haven't noticed about Modi is that he has a theory of economic history and of economic growth. And it involves both these elements. And in effect, what he, I think, thinks and reasons is, if you look at global economic history over the last 200 years or so, with the beginning of nationalism in the West and then in East Asia, in Japan, in China, particularly, it's when you unify a people under one religion, language, and cultural system that you lay the basis for a deep unity. And it's from that unity that you get rapid long-term growth. And he points to Western Europe in that respect as well, noting, rightly or wrongly, I think in his mind, I mean, I'm not saying that he's actually said this publicly, but I think this is the kind of economic history that he believes in, that even the West, its unity and real push for economic growth and advancement came under pretty much what we would call majority or majoritarian governments, at least in an earlier era. They weren't fully liberal, democratic, electoral democracies. And as they evolved, I mean, they were built on Christian or secular humanist peoples with one language and so on. And India has to go down that road. Now, he may be right and he may be wrong, but it seems to me that this accent in the second term on his cultural political agenda and in the first on the economic issues, they're not that far apart. He thinks in his mind that they're linked. And that's my inference, that's my conclusion from what I've seen. Of course, I can't produce a piece of paper where he's scribbled that down, but I think that's the way he might square the circle of those two propositions.
Kanti, I think it's really interesting how you say, these cultural aspects of Modi and this economic drive of Modi is intertwined. But I want to go back to what you said about seeing him in a religious setting as odd as a leader. I used to think that, but I don't anymore. I look at Modi when he is, say, at the Ayodhya temple dedication in priestly garb, and that is the image he wants to portray to the world and the nation. And, I used to think, comparing him to, like, if I saw President Trump presiding over, when he was president, presiding over some kind of mass or something like that, I would think that was very odd. But for Modi, I think that is just part of what sells him. And that is, a unified part of his personality. I just have a comment here from Rahul Jetwani. Again, these are Rahul's words, not mine. He says, you need to be aware, this is how politics is always played in India. You have a largely uneducated electorate, and you need to target their emotive side to gain their votes. And Rahul is saying Congress and BJP both do this.
And that is something that people are discussing.
I think that's periodic.
Go ahead, Kanti, sorry. Go ahead.
I think periodically that's been true. The Congress Party and other parties have flirted with religious politics as well. But I think what's different about Modi is that it's far more up front and center, as you say. And if you don't find it odd that he's sitting cross-legged in seemingly in this temple setting, almost kind of consecrating the temple as a prime minister, I think that is odd in relation to the history of India so far, post-independence India. Now, of course, I'd say also there are Western prime ministers who are happy to be seen, at a church, singing hymns and so on periodically. So the difference may not be, altogether, of great difference. But I think there's certainly for India, what Modi has done is different, and the Ayodhya temple kind of peaks that or culminates that politics.
Kanti, hold that thought, because I'd like to go to Ashutosh. Ashutosh, you've been listening to what Kanti's been saying. Can I just first check, Do you have some more time? Because I know that you were potentially up against the deadline.
Sure.
Can you stay for some more time? Or
No.
Yeah?
Yeah, sure. I can stay for some more time.
Okay, so just based on what Kanti was saying in terms of, based on the example in other parts of Asia and here in Western Europe as well, as to how majoritarian rule united people and then you had economic progress. Modi has made a lot of claims of economic progress. Do you think there's a bit of hypocrisy when countries in the West talk about so-called Hindu-nationalism in India when they themselves went through majoritarian rule in the past and then progressed?
I think it's a very complex question which you're asking, because if you look at America, today the Donald Trump is phenomenally popular. How will you in which bracket will you put him? So the issue is not about that whether what is happening in Hungary, how the Osborne is popular, how the Donald Trump is popular, how the Mr. Modi is popular.
Mm-hmm.
The issue is this is an era of rise of the right. So right-wingers everywhere, whether in India or in USA, everywhere they are on the rise. And this is simply because there is no alternative. People are fed up, people are unhappy with the liberal democracy, the concept liberal democracy, which is failing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why people are looking for the right-wingers, people are looking for somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
The issue is something else. The BJP's ideology, we have to go back to the BJP's ideology. BJP's ideology is not about the economic, in making India economic superpower.
Mm-hmm.
BJP's ideology is to seek revenge from the past, the reclamation of the past glory, and promise of the paradise. And that's how they are doing it. They want Hindus to be united as one unit.
Mm-hmm.
And so that in future ever, they don't have to suffer the Muslims or any other religion's rule over them.
Mm-hmm.
That's the basic fundamentals. If you compare the economic data of Manmohan Singh's Manmohan Singh 2004 to 2014 and economic data of 2014 to 2024, you will find that the Manmohan Singh regime has done much better on the economic front,
right,
despite 2008 economic recession.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in 2014 to 2024,
yeah,
there has been many missteps which has been taken by the Modi regime.
yeah.
And so I'm not very sure about the economic policy or the economic philosophy of the RSS.
Mm-hmm.
Economic philosophy of the RSS, the BJP is highly confused,
Mm-hmm.
because whether they want to go to the laissez-faire, to the market economy. Sometimes they talk about going back to the Swadeshi model.
Right.
But there is no clarity on that. Mr. Modi has trying to build a model of economic development based on Gujarat. But Gujarat was already a prosperous state. Today, there is hardly any indicator on which we as an Indian can feel proud of. Look at the happiness index. Look at the democracy index. Look at the other indexes. They're much below.
I really do want to discuss the economy. I will do that, but before that, I just want to talk about, because you talked about alternatives, I do want to bring in the opposition here as to why the opposition isn't an alternative, or if it is it being able to project its case well? Let's come to you first, Ashutosh, and then I'd like to go to Kanti for his views on that.
See, the opposition is in disarray, there is no doubt about it. And especially the Congress party. And the Congress has to reinvent itself. The Congress has ruled India for a very, very long time. So obviously there are serious concerns, there are serious complaints, and there are the serious infirmities within the Congress itself. Mm-hmm. The Congress as an idea survived for too long. But Congress as a structure, Congress as an organization has to reinvent itself. What the Rahul Gandhi today is doing, and with many people in many of my colleagues don't agree with me, that Rahul Gandhi is trying to reinvent Congress party. Mm-hmm. Look at the way he's talking about the caste census. The Congress had never talked about the caste census because they have realized that upper caste has gone to the BJP, and the Muslims have also drifted towards the other smaller political parties.
Right.
So from where they'll get the social base to come back again at the center.
Right.
So the social base, which is 50% of the OBCs, and that's why they are trying to cater to. So Muslims, OBCs, and the Congress. This is not an easy task because Congress organizationally is almost a non-existent party today, despite being in government at many places. And the BJP is a colossus. BJP runs an election machine which is unmatched across the world.
Right.
It has got humongous resources. It has got an ideology which drives passions. So opposition in disarray, there is no doubt about it. And it will not be easy for them to give a tough competition to the BJP in 2024.
Right. Bringing just on this opposition point, I just want to bring. I'll bring you in, Kanti, just for one. But before that, I just want to show some visuals. Maybe Wade, if you can show some visuals of the India alliance. The opposition, about 27 parties got together to jointly contest the elections. Whether it was indeed a joint contestation is debatable, and this is where Kanti can come in. These are images from last year when they were forming up the alliance. It's called India. India is basically an acronym for, hold on to your seats, Indian-National Developmental Inclusive Alliance. That's the mouthful, and it's called an India Alliance. And they are the opposition here to the BJP. Kanti, do you think that the India Alliance has lived up to its promise, or has it been a damp squib so far?
Well, first of all, calling it India was an own goal. A self-made goal, because it played into the hands of the Hindu right wing and the BJP, which then said, oh, well, India's a foreign name, and these guys are all foreign inclined. India is Bharat. Bharat is the real name, native name for India. So, it just allowed them to play another part of their cultural politics against the opposition. So, in any case, the name was a disaster. But I think the Congress still is the only national party apart from the BJP. Leave the communists apart. They're the third. But none of the regional parties has managed to really get out of their states and make much of a showing anywhere else, which shows their limitations. And you could call that disarray. AAP itself, which has some pretensions towards going national, is in disarray for various reasons. So, Rahul, I agree with Ashutosh that Rahul Gandhi is smarter and more, both tactical and strategic than one thinks,
right.
And not as inept as people think. But the problem within the Congress is the following. Those who accuse the family of, kind of hijacking and dominating the party forget that there's no second tier which could take over the leadership, because they themselves, the second tier doesn't trust each other. There are a whole bunch of them that don't trust each other, and they'd rather the Gandhis run the party than have anyone else. And so they spend a lot of time undercutting the second tier of leadership. Right. It doesn't take the Gandhis to disunite the Congress. It's the second tier that do it very well indeed, and they're quite happy to have the Gandhis at the top. That's the problem. Not that there are these pathological Gandhis just hungering for power all the time. Right. It's the second tier in the Congress who can't make up their minds on who a second tier or successor might be.
I do want to talk about the economy, and that is what I would like to jump to. But before we do that, I just need to ask you again, Ashutosh, you're still with us, or do you have to leave?
Yeah, I'm here.
You're fine, okay.
No, I'm here, don't worry.
Right. So I'm not going to ask you this question again. We're just going to continue with you being there. Sorry for...
Yeah. No, I do want to say, while we still have Ashutosh, both you and Kanti said that the opposition is in disarray and going up a BJP election machine. And, that is kind of coming through in the chat. We've got people like Achut Mohan saying Modi is never unbeatable, but the opposition has no vision, no ideas. They are surviving in a plank of various freebies. And also, earlier, Achut Mohan also said the opposition was in power for 6 years. What did they do for these problems that they're saying the BJP can solve? So.
Right. And the reason we have this discussion is to have these kind of questions and comments from you guys who are watching this stream. Kanti and Ashutosh, if you can just stay on the line, I think it's important that we just go to Pablo, who has been monitoring the questions and the comments that have been coming in the chat, and maybe you can bring us up to speed with what's going on, because from the way I'm seeing it from the corner of my eye, there's a lot of comments that are pouring in. So what is the kind of mood that's developing on the chat?
I would call it lively.
Lively?
It's definitely very
That's one
lively.
word.
There's a lot of strong opinions there. Michelle, you've touched on it there. There are a lot of comments asking us whether we would have someone from the BJP who could comment perhaps as well. That's been coming up quite a lot. A lot of questions being asked about what the big issues are in this election and whether we can pose those to our guests. You guys have been doing that periodically. We also, of course, let's not forget that we have the poll up. And actually, the poll has now closed. So I can actually bring you those poll results. Interesting, basically no shift from the poll that we had up for 24 hours, which I think is quite interesting from our viewers. The question just once again was, how will India's election play out for the BJP? 61% said that there would be an increased majority for the BJP. A reduced majority, just 15%. Same as last time, 15%. And loses their majority, 9%. So that's also something that perhaps our guests can comment on, how they see things going. And then also, you know, a lot of comments, a lot of support there for the BJP in our comments. Also, what I found, what was standing out for me was, Michelle, you touched on it there, which was talking about the opposition and how a lot of the comments were mentioning the fact that they felt the opposition wasn't as strong as they would like it to be. So that's what I'm seeing at the moment.
Thanks very much for that, Pablo. It's always good to sort of have somebody dedicatedly looking at the chat and giving us the views.
It's keeping me entertained.
It is.
And on my toes.
That is another word for any discussion on Indian politics. I've been promising our guests, and especially you, Ashutosh, from the beginning, that we're going to talk about the economy. And since everybody watching did want to talk about some of the issues, let's talk about the economy, because that keeps coming up.
It's the economy, stupid.
It's the economy, stupid. But I mean, it didn't work in the first two elections. But anyhow, that's what it might seem from my point of view. Let's come to you, Kanti. You've been listening patiently. The economy, how important is it going to be in this election?
I mean, I think it'll vary regionally and different sectors of the voting public. I mean, clearly, something about jobs is an issue. Whether that translates into votes is not quite clear, but there's an unease. What is it? 43% of young people, college graduates, have no jobs. These are estimates because the government now doesn't release unemployment figures, so it's very hard to know. But there are estimates again, that suggest unemployment may be at its highest in, God knows, 2-3 decades.
Yeah.
So I think that part of the economy is worrisome, and it'll vary. There are places where it'll be an issue. I think the one thing I did want to say about the economy that's quite interesting is that, and I slightly differ with Ashutosh here, but if you look at the 30-year period of the Indian economy, from the reforms of the early 1990s to now, that's exactly 30 years now, basically. 3 decades, 3 10-year terms. The first 10 years were the initial years of the reforms under Narasimha Rao and successors, coalition governments and so on. But they still managed to post, on average, 7% per annum for those first 10 years. The Manmohan Singh period, allowing for 2008, which was the global financial crisis and all of that, basically comes out at 7% per annum over those 10 years as well. I mean, give or take a percentage point or whatever. Here I'm talking about World Bank figures, nominal GDP as recorded in the World Bank. Interestingly, Modi, with his majority over 2 terms amounting to 10 years and allowing for COVID, I mean, every prime minister in this 30 years has faced some kind of an economic or other challenge. He has not broken the 7% per annum barrier. So he had a majority. He didn't have worrisome coalition partners. He, unlike Manmohan Singh, who was accused of being a weak prime minister, driven by internal battles within the Congress and with his coalition partners, Modi has none of those weaknesses. And he still can't deliver more than 7% per annum. So now, having said that, 7% per annum is not bad if you look at global trends. And India has grown at 7% per annum for 30 years. Roughly at 7% per annum, you double the economy every 10 years, 10 or 11 years. So I would say the following, Modi promised a lot on the economy. He hasn't done any better than anyone else, and he hasn't done much worse. But he had strengths, and he could and should have done better, it seems to me.
Right. Let's just go back to the employment question, the unemployment question rather. And you were talking about certain facts and figures. We have some facts and figures. We've been able to collate something. And again, it depends on which source you go to. So there could be variations in that. Jared was doing some research on that, and he prepared these graphics on youth unemployment. And we can throw them up.
Exactly, if Wade can bring them up. I think the first figure that we had is from, if my memory serves me, 2019. So the overall youth unemployment was at 17.5%. Then 2 years ago, it was down to 12.1%. And last year, a flat 10%. So a decline in the last 4 years.
These are figures from the International Labour Organization, right?
Exactly. Exactly. So I guess we're counting from around the time of the pandemic until last year. We also have a graph of overall unemployment if we wanted to bring that up as well. Overall unemployment in India, this is figures provided by the Indian government. So we can see around the time of the pandemic beginning 4.2% and in 2023, if I can read that, does it say 3.1?
3.1%.
3.1% there.
Yeah. But then again, just a caveat there, this is from the Periodic Labour Force Survey. It's from the Indian government. And that's where I wanted to bring Ashutosh in. Ashutosh, if these figures are indeed true, that unemployment is down to 3.1%, you would think that unemployment is not a problem. Do you believe these figures?
Unfortunately, whatever you call it, today the government of India's data there is a serious question mark about them. And because you remember in 2019 when the parliament election was happening, there was a government of India's NASO data, and it said that the unemployment rate in India at that point of time was highest in the last 45 years. Government did not agree to that. When the elections were over, the government then sleepishly agreed. Now the data which I have today is that if you come the Forbes, which is one of the very prestigious magazine, it says that in 2008, the unemployment rate was 5.41. In 2023, unemployment rate is 8.003. In 2024, January 2024, 6.57. And don't agree with me, but the fact is today there is so much anger on the ground. And that is why in every survey which is done by the credible agencies, unemployment is at the top, on the top. So there is a serious issue of unemployment. About between 20 to 24 years old, the unemployment rate is 44%, which is humongous. And why this is happening? Because India has slipped in manufacturing sector. In 2010, the manufacturing sector's contribution in the GDP growth was 17%. In 2022, it has slipped to 13%. In fact, in 2019, it was again 13%. So if your manufacturing sector is not growing, how will you create jobs? The FDI is down by 31%. So the issue is that the two issues. One, the whole, there is basically which the government of India will not like, but the fact is that there's a dearth of talent. And the dearth of talent means what? Those advising the government of India, the Prime Minister's personality is so intimidating that they are finding it finding it difficult to tell him the exact reality. And that is why it is a sad affair today that we don't get unemployment data from the government. We have to either go to the CMI or to ILO data somewhere else.
And therefore we have all these.
This is a real issue today.
Right. And therefore we have all these different kinds of data.
Unemployment is the real issue.
Yeah. Let's go to Kanti. Kanti, just one final word on the economy, because I'd like to move on to the foreign policy angle of this as well. How do you think this is going to impact the voting that is yet to be held?
Well, you said it's the economy, stupid. I
Michelle
wonder.
said that. She brought that up.
But it is.
I know. Yeah, I know. I hear you. Ashutosh is right that there is anger, and it's an issue, and it may play more in some areas than in others. But just have a feeling that various political elements, the disarray of the opposition, Modi's fantastic campaigning as always, all of that will prevail. I'm not sure that people are going to be so upset as to punish him very severely, if they punish him at all. And this is why I say, I mean, there may be a drift back in terms of the total number of seats somewhat, but not as high as we thought initially. But what's a bit striking is that as you watch the campaign and listen to what's going on the part of the opposition, it just doesn't strike me that the opposition has really managed to hit that ball out of the ballpark, as the Americans say, on unemployment, on the economy, on the failure of Make in India, on, I mean, if you just look at Modi's policies over 10 years, demonetization was a mess. The GST, people are still complaining about it. The land acquisition bill, he tried to modify it, failed. The agriculture bill failed. Labor reforms failed. Made in India, not great, not even in the defense sector, to be honest, on major weapons platforms. Right. Even in the developmental sector, the open defecation free kind of, anti-defecation, it was a qualified success at best. The real success, the cleanup of the banking sector. Again, just a very mixed record there. FDI has done okay, I would say. What are the outright wins on economic policy? I would say probably infrastructure, but that was well on its way from the Vajpayee government's time, even before Manmohan Singh, frankly. Cooking gas availability, better electricity. I mean, those are 2, 3, they're not unimportant. But, for all of that, Modi has not been a great economic manager, and certainly no better than his predecessors at 7% growth rates per annum for 10 years. You can't say he's done better, and he may have done worse if you are skeptical about the GDP figures. One last point. I mean, I think that, looking ahead a bit, he's promising a lot more reforms in this next avatar if he comes to power. So, let's see what he delivers. But the 7% per annum over 30 years suggests that, there's some things that are outside of even Modi's kind of power to change. And it may be that India really can't bust past 7% per annum really consistently. And that might come down to 2 things. One, the really terrible state of Indian education from the primary school level upwards, and still horrible health numbers. Primary basic health is terrible. At last count, 30% of Indians roughly were stunted. Right. That's probably most of the stunted people in the entire world. Stunted just doesn't mean you're short. I mean, it does mean that. You didn't get to your full height, but it also means your cognitive abilities were affected. Right. Now, 30% of Indian youth being, of babies and children up to the age of 5 being stunted means that's hundreds of millions of kids who will never reach their full cognitive potential as adults. How do you run a modern economy when you have those kinds of figures?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to quickly say that you've run through a laundry list of nitpick things. Actually, not really nitpicks, but, things that really just haven't worked out in terms of economic programs. But I have to say, in the chat, there's a lot of defense of Modi. I think this comment kind of sums it up. You were quoting a 7% growth figure. The myself says, grow is 8%. It's not bad growth, bro.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the overall picture that's taken away.
I don't think your listeners listening. No, your listeners not listening. I said 7% per annum. Nobody claims 8% per annum for Modi. Yeah. Okay. That's nonsense. Yeah. It's 7% or less. Right. Okay, that's not bad. But given that he has such a strong position in Parliament and in his party, the undisputed leader, why can't he go past 7%? That's what he promised. Right. And he can't. He hasn't delivered.
Ashutosh, you wanted to jump in there, I think, right?
See, I think that the strong government and the strong prime minister is no guarantee for the economic reforms. The Indian economy was reformed when there was a coalition government in 1999, 91. when the Narasimha Rao was the Prime Minister, he barely has a majority. But he did the most fantastic thing by going for the economic reforms. Atal Bihari Vajpayee's government continued. Again, it was a government which didn't have the majority on its own. But it continued with economic reforms. Manmohan Singh government, again, is a weak Prime Minister, as said. And again, the first term of the Manmohan Singh government, from the economic point of view, was fantastic. As the Congress increased their number beyond 200, the economy started sliding, and the problem started coming in, because when the Pranab Mukherjee became the Prime Minister, Pranab Mukherjee became the Finance Minister, there was a problem. Right. So everybody who was thinking that Mr. Narendra Modi is very popular, he's got a majority on its own, he's a very strong person, very strong-willed, decisive leader, economy should have gone up. But look what happened. In 2015, 2016, economy was growing at 8%. Then suddenly you saw the demonetization, economy tanked. Then the mess up with the GST, again it tanked. And before, don't blame this pandemic. Before, in the last quarter before the pandemic, Indian economy was growing at a 4.3%. So let's not think that because of the pandemic, Indian economy has gone bad. It is before pandemic, the economy was going down. Issue is the Prime Minister, who is a very highly political. Right. He doesn't want to take. He doesn't want to take unpopular decisions. When he's taking unpopular decisions, and unfortunately on the economic front, you have to take certain unpopular decisions, which he's not taking. With Narasimha Rao took when his government was in minority. That's one of the fundamental reasons, because every time you look at, if I take this step, whether I'll get votes or I will not get votes. If I will not get votes, I will not take any stand. It's better to feed 80 crore people 5 crore rations, and because that will win elections. But don't you realize that the freebie culture which has come to India is going to ruin this economy? Is further going to ruin this economy, because every government, whether the Congress government, the BJP government, Aam Aadmi Party, is out to give freebies. Right. You get free electricity, you get free water, you get this. This is going to ruin the Indian economy. Right.
Let's just try and bring it all together now and sort of sum up our thoughts. I think we're at that stage in the conversation in which it'll be a good idea to just get some final thoughts from you, Ashutosh and Kanti, and then maybe around the table we can just move across and just have a look at where things are. Beginning with you, Kanti, in briefly, if you can manage it as a quick summary, what should we be looking out for in the next 6 phases of voting, and how do you think this election is going to shape up?
Well, I guess I'm repeating myself, but he'll do okay. Modi will do fine. I think he'll come in with 300 plus, not the 370 or 400 that people imagined or he's shooting for. But, that's still a very substantial victory in a third term. And if that's the case, he'll almost certainly run for a 4th term. But yeah, I mean, I'm not enough of an expert state by state to tell you what's going to go down in each state. Right. But he'll do well in the North. I think the real thing to look for is whether he can penetrate the South. I'm skeptical, but but we haven't even got to foreign policy, which you were promising to discuss. But,
yeah, I don't think we'll have. I don't think we will have. To be honest, I don't think we will have time to discuss foreign policy in any great detail.
We'll have to have you back.
That would do it justice. I mean, that's the thing. Yeah. I mean, the challenge with doing anything on Indian elections is that there's so many strands, and they're all so interesting. And there's experts such as yourself who know so much. I do apologize, Kanti, and I do apologize to the people who are watching. This is not the last discussion on the Indian elections that we're going to have. It is important to sort of point that out. And this is not the only format in which we're going to be discussing the Indian elections. My sincere apologies for not being able to bring foreign policy in. But so far, what we have heard has, I think, been quite enriching. Ashutosh, if I can just come to you for a final word from you. What should we be watching out for in the next 6 phases? And like Kanti, would you like to come up with a number at the end of your answer, or would you rather just avoid that?
No, see, I'm not as optimistic as Kanti is about the Modi getting 300 seats. I'm a little skeptical about that. Modi will have a tough time to forming the government for the third time, because there is a definite unease on the ground, and there are issues which has to be dealt with. The point number two, as elections are going forward, second term, third term, fourth terms, I see more communal agenda taking the center stage, more polarization of votes, more talk about Hindus and Muslims, and more vitriolic and the bitter campaign, and a more the campaign full of vengeance on the opposition. Look at the language which has been used by Mr. Narendra Modi and his cabinet ministers. They're calling the Congress Party's manifesto as a manifesto of Jinnah Muslim League of 1936, which is something which I had never thought about it. He's talking about he's already quoting the Mughal Sultanate. He's calling Rahul Gandhi as a Sahjadi, something like this. So what amazes me is that he has started doing this before the first phase of elections. That means he must have some information. He must have realized there is unease, and he needs to change the track of the election. He needs to change the narrative of the election. Right. And that is why he's taking the emotional route, and the emotional route is Hindu-Muslim binary. And in that Hindu-Muslim binary, whether it is working on the ground, I'm keeping my fingers crossed, because I have spoken to many, many people. Even the CSDS survey says the Ram Mandir construction is not an issue in the election. Hindutva is an issue for only 2% of the population.
Right. We'll leave it there for the time being as far as these particular issues to do with the Indian election are concerned. Ashutosh in India and Kanti Bajpai in Singapore, thanks very much for joining us. My personal apologies to you, Kanti, for not being able to discuss the foreign policy question. It's not the last time we will discuss the Indian election, and we will have you back to make good on the promise that I made to you. Thanks so much to you both, gentlemen. Have a good evening, and hope to be able to speak to you all on another occasion. Thanks so much. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you.
And with that, should we just have a quick round of what people thought? I mean, I don't know. Did you find this interesting?
Yeah, super fascinating to follow. I think a lot of people following online also found it fascinating. Lots and lots of heated debate about what has been said.
Yeah, for a number of different reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if I weigh in here, I mean, what I find very interesting, and I think is the top line that we get internationally, is that in the past decade under Modi, the Indian economy has jumped 5 places to the 5th position in the world. I mean, there's no denying that. But after talking to our experts who have been able to lift up the hood and dig a little bit deeper than I have, you know, definitely there are some things that haven't really come out as Modi may have wished, may have planned. And if I were living in India, I do wonder how that would affect my vote. I wish I could vote, but I cannot.
We cannot vote. I mean, I would have loved to have gone and voted, but I would have to fly to India to do that. Pablo, what did you think of this entire discussion?
Same as Irish people, you can't vote from abroad. You have to fly home to vote. Very lively, as I said before, and you guys have said, lots and lots of strong opinions there. A lot of chat about the economy. It was fascinating to see, you know, a lot of the issues that are affecting Indian voters, of course, are not that different to other big economies around the world. Yeah, you've got a very high growth rate, but of course that's not for everybody, and I'm sure people have their issues with this government, and then of course there are going to be people who are very much in agreement. We're seeing that in this chat today. What I found quite fascinating was we had a lot of support for the BJP, a lot of discussion with regards to the economy and the effects of that in India, the positive effects, according to the people who've been following today's discussion. And also, yeah, I mean, some strong opinions about our guests. There's no denying that. We can see that in the chat. A lot of the comments were, the majority of the comments were, you know, were done nicely, we'll say. But certainly it was very interesting for me to learn so much about India today. So great discussion. And like you said, I don't think it'll be the last time we'll be talking about this.
I hope not. We have 5 more weeks to go, and I think we can be discussing a few other things.
We have to have Kanti back.
We need to get Kanti back. I don't think he was very happy with not talking about foreign policy. He's great in foreign policy, and we'd really like to hear what he has to say.
That did pop up, by the way, in the chat. That did. Foreign policy popped up a couple of times.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we would really love to discuss foreign policy and a number of other issues in depth, but It's just we cannot do it all in one show. You will have to agree with us on that. Before we go, it's just worth reminding the results of the poll that we had asked at the very outset. The question that we were asking is, how will India's election play out for the BJP? And the results that we had are very interesting in terms of what the majority of the population think, at least the people who voted for this. And it's just worth reminding people that a majority, about 60% of people, thought that the BJP would come back with an increased majority. About 25 to 30% of the people thought that there would be a bit of a reduced majority, or it would stay the same as last time, essentially not being a super majority. And only about 9 to 10% thought that the BJP would lose a majority.
Can I add something about that? Because that really reflects, I think, a statement from Ashutosh earlier on in his interview where he said Modi has changed the rules of the game in Indian politics. And I think it looks like a lot of people watching today feel the same.
Very passionately, many of them.
Yeah.
I quite like Kanti's, what he said. Modi will do fine.
The understatement of the Right, we'll leave it there for the time being. But again, this is not the last show that we will have on a conversation, at least, on the Indian elections. There'll be other formats as well in which we will be discussing various other things. But I've thoroughly enjoyed this. I hope you all have as well. And
I have too. And please come back next week. We will stream again on Wednesdays. And make sure that you look ahead of time, 24 hours ahead of time. We'll post the questions so you know what we're talking about. And subscribe so you can put in your comments or questions so you can take part and be a part of this discussion. We want to hear from you.
Thanks so much for watching. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.